morning, and welcome to the Mental Breakdown Morning Show. I'm Dr. Bernie Wilkinson.
I'm Dr. Richard Marshall.
Good morning. It's November 1st.
November 1st, and have I got some news for you this morning?
What's the news?
Daylight savings time. Daylight savings time.
Yes, I made a mistake last Friday.
No, but it's understandable.
Uh-huh.
It did change.
Uh-huh.
The law changed in 2005 during the Bush administration. Traditionally, because Halloween prompted you for daylight savings time.
Right.
The reason is because it was always the last Sunday of October.
Okay.
You were right.
See?
Yeah,
that's what I
Again,
thought.
do you get tired of being right?
No.
Okay. Well, you were right about that. However, what you didn't know, and of course there's no reason why you should know this, and I don't remember it, but it's happened 10 times.
Okay.
Daylight savings time in 2005, 5 or 7, was moved from the last Sunday of October to the first Sunday of November.
Okay.
And that was done to save oil. It saves 100,000 barrels of oil per day.
It hurts my brain to think about that.
And the first Sunday of November
Okay.
is this coming Sunday.
Okay.
It happens to be, October ended on a Monday, so now I have to wait a whole week beyond what. But I don't remember this happening on the first Sunday of November. Do you?
I don't know. No, I don't.
I don't either. But they said it was in 2000. Now, maybe it went into effect this year, that the law was passed, but starting in something. But it sounded like that's why it happened.
That's interesting.
So there is an explanation for our confusion. You were right. It's around Halloween. That's the prompt, right?
Yeah.
That's changed. Now it's the first Sunday of November.
All right. Well,
we are sure this time.
We're sure
about the clock. We've had some mail come in about, do we really turn our clocks back this weekend, guys? Because we know a great deal about many things, but not clocks.
But
not time change, not Greenwich Meridian time.
Astronomical.
Okay. Anyway, we wanted to clear that up.
All right.
Okay.
So, but that is that's not exactly what we were going to talk about today, but it's good to know.
But it is November.
That there's a difference. Yes.
We are into like it or not, we are racing.
Yes.
Toward the holiday season.
Not much time left. So, but today we're going to talk, and we're not going to talk about a specific article today or a specific column or anything like that. We're going to talk about almost a genre of articles and columns that have been out, and this was triggered by a podcast that I was listening to not too long ago, and I listened to a number of podcasts just with lots of different information, lots of different strategies and things like that for a variety of stuff. Anyways, in this particular podcast, there was a cardiologist talking about what he believes to be the primary cause of so many of our health and even mental health issues recently. Yeah,
this is the one you told me about.
Yeah.
The lightning guy.
Yeah, and so, I'm listening to him, I'm thinking, this is going to be pretty good.
Right.
We talk about, inflammation in your body a lot, especially from the things that you eat and everything, and he starts out talking about inflammation. Mm-hmm. And then he shifts a little bit, and he starts talking about inflammation, that we have all this inflammation because we wear shoes and because we're not grounded in the earth as much as we used to be. And so because the earth is struck by lightning so many thousands of times a day, the earth has this sort of charge to it, and that when we walk in conductive shoes, so he talks about like leather shoes and things like that, things that don't have rubber or neoprene soles or barefooted, that it sort of transmits, we collect some of that electrical energy into our body, and he was talking about things. And I was there until we got to that point. And then he starts talking about how, that diabetes is, related to not walking around barefooted, and that heart disease and
not absorbing this electrical force.
And it got me to thinking that we see these trends where people, I think the population in general, but then even some professionals have a really difficult time differentiating causal and correlational information. For example, he one of the things that he says is that if we look at about the time that all these fancy tennis shoes and rubber soles and neoprene soles and everything were coming out, that's right around the same time that we started seeing this spike in health related problems and diabetes and everything. And so this guided his particular line of research into looking at the relationship of this electrical energy. And what we're seeing though is that's a correlational relationship. It's like as you get older, your reading skills get better. But your reading skills don't get better because you're older. Your reading skills get better because you're practicing and you're getting more exposure and things like that. Your age in and of itself has nothing to do with your reading skill, except as it relates to the experience and practice. It doesn't cause
your age. Increasing age doesn't cause reading to improve.
Right.
It's related to it.
Right.
Because of experience.
Right. They're correlated. It's not a causal relationship.
Right. Right.
So I wanted to talk a little bit today about how to differentiate science and pseudoscience and how to really get in there and understand, when you go online and you're Googling information about, whether it's diet, whether it's, the impact of exercise or whatever the case may be, or the effects of, walking around barefooted on your physical health. How do you differentiate good information from information that's probably not as solid?
And I'm glad I think we're broaching this topic for the first time. This is the first time we really discussed this topic. And I'm glad we are, and I hope that we can talk about it additionally, because we're in an age where people can, in fact, we were going to call this talk, we were going to title it
Science versus Pseudoscience.
No,
but it's better to call it Beware the Google.
Beware the Google. Because we can now, through Google, through this fabulous search engine, we can access medical information that until a few years ago was available only in medical school libraries. Now with the internet, this information is available. So now people Google things and they challenge physicians and they challenge other professionals because they have access to more information.
Right.
That's a good thing. But not all information is born equal.
Right.
And so what our obligation is now, yes, we can be in possession of information, but now because we have the information, we also have the obligation to search for accurate information. Didn't say not necessarily scientific, but accurate information. Because there, as all of you know, there are lots of charlatans out there. The latest thing is this bleach business. There's for a cure for autism. Well, everybody's looking and wants to find some. I don't want to say a cure for autism, but an intervention, a successful intervention for autism. And so there are people who are unscrupulous, who will tout some magical cure that this will take care of autism. We got into trouble with autism by thinking that the cause was immunizations. Right. And now we have children getting whooping cough and measles and other avoidable diseases. And we know that it's not the inoculations, the immunizations that are causing it. So we have to be careful as consumers that, yes, the information is out there and you can access it, but make sure you're accessing reliable and accurate information.
Right. Yeah. So one of the things you want to do is, I think that one of the strongest sources that you can search, instead of just going to Google, go to Google Scholar. So scholar.google.com.
Scholar.google.com.
Yeah.
Okay? Not just Google. There's a difference.
Okay? Yeah. So Google Scholar, of course, that searches the research literature, and it searches like Medline and Psych Ovid and PsycInfo and some of those other sources that's going to give you more access to research articles and publications that have been peer reviewed and examined under a little bit more strenuous and tight guidelines.
Right. Yeah. Other people have looked at.
It's not just somebody's blog.
That's right. We're not trying to sell. They're not just selling something.
Anytime you
see sponsored link, be careful because they're selling something. .com. Be careful with .com because that's a commercial site.
Right.
They're selling something. So be careful with those sites. So go to scholar.google.com.
And then another thing that I always encourage people to do is look at how it relates to your life.
Right.
Just as a quick example, we do talk about diet a lot here. And I talk to people often about how to shift their diet and how to shift what they're putting into their body, because that's going to affect how you feel. Now, you will read if you if you Google or if you're searching and reading what some people think about the relationship between diet and mood and diet and behaviors and things like that. There are people who are adamant that there is absolutely no relationship between what you eat and how you feel.
And these are professionals.
These are professionals.
MDs,
PhDs,
who do research.
Absolutely.
Right. They know how to do research. They know the difference between some kind of a relationship and a causal relationship. So even they will sometimes take this absolute approach to their discovery or their theory.
Right. Yeah, I was reading a couple of sites this morning, and it was so interesting because the exact absolute nature of that they were criticizing one side for, they were using on their side.
Right.
But when it comes to, again, just sticking with the example of diet, to say that there's no relationship between what you eat and how you feel, that should challenge your own experience. Because what happens on Thanksgiving? Well, you eat something, you eat turkey and you eat those things that we know are high in tryptophan, and it makes you tired.
Right.
Well, so we know that what you ate made you tired. It affected your level of alertness, your level of activity and arousal. So we know absolutely from our own experience that what you eat affects how you feel.
Right.
So to negate that doesn't make...
Right, because our brain has about 100 chemicals. It has hormones, neurotransmitters, and other chemicals, about 100 of them. And they're extracted from the foods that we eat. So you eat food every day, and your brain extracts the nutrients it needs to build those brain chemicals. And if you don't have enough serotonin, you might have symptoms of depression. If you have too much dopamine. So having too little or too much of something will affect your mood, your affect, your feelings, your cognition.
Right.
So to say that there's no relationship, I had trouble with that one.
Right. Now, then when you go, of course, if you go too far, then you get into problems because we have GMOs, genetically modified organisms, right? And so now we have all of the labels and everything that say non-GMO, or if it doesn't have that label, then it presumably has GMOs. Right. And there are proponents who say you should absolutely stay away from GMOs. And there are other individuals who say, well, there's not a lot of evidence to say that GMOs really cause any problems. And with that, the jury is still out. We don't know for certain what effect GMOs have. Now, do you want to... So then it becomes just a personal choice.
Right.
But no one would say, or I certainly wouldn't say, and I would be very cautious if I read someone say, oh, well, you have to stay away from GMOs because if you're eating GMOs, it's going to cause an anxiety disorder.
Right.
Or it cause you to feel this way or do that or do this. I haven't had that experience. I haven't had the experience where I consumed something with GMOs and it made me feel a particular way. And so I don't have a personal experience that relates to that. And so I don't have any reason to be drawn on one side of that argument or the other.
And GMOs is a good example of another anomaly that we face. Every legitimate intervention will work with some percentage of the population.
Right.
It doesn't matter what disorder we're talking about. Anything will work with a portion of the population.
Right.
Okay? When a drug or any kind of an intervention, whether it's drug or non-drug, when they first come out, it's based on a relatively small number of people. I mean, you can't, if you're testing a drug over a 10-year period, there are only so many people you can test over a 10-year period. And so you base your conclusion on that many people.
Right.
over a period of 10 years, we continued to do research
Right.
on those drugs.
Right.
Okay, so collecting hundreds or thousands of cases could change your conclusion.
Right.
All right. And so don't be thrown by this. Well, they said this wasn't good, and it, like fat in your diet. You know, we thought for a long time that we should avoid fats. Well, we learned over time that wasn't, because we just were able to do more studies, and the more studies you do, the more people you study, the clearer the picture becomes.
Right.
And so, so don't be thrown by, well, they told us this and they told us that, and that wasn't true, and this isn't true. Over time, information changes.
Right.
So,
and that brings up another great way to help you differentiate science from pseudoscience. Most science is not going to be so absolute. It's not going to say this will cure this, or this will resolve this problem. It will say, for this percentage of people, or for many people, or for some people with these problems, this has been shown to be effective.
Even the most radical approaches, which are surgery, doesn't always work for everybody. It should, but it does. You can have it'll work for 9 out of 10 people, but there are always a couple of people for whom it won't work. So
yeah, there was a guy here in Florida for a number of years who was selling these vitamin gummies, and he was proclaiming that it cured autism. So he was selling these, lots of these to people all over the country, shipping them out to all these places. But it didn't work, of course, and because if some guy, if somebody, if we just think about this logically for a few minutes, if somebody is claiming that this product or this system cures this condition, that would probably be well known. It would be publicized. It would be on TV. Your pediatrician would know. Your doctor would know. So to say that when you're looking at these things, and it just kind of strikes you as, really? Wow.
Especially if it's radical and new. If you've never heard about it, say, oh my gosh, we just made this huge discovery. Probably not.
Right.
Most of these new things would get a probably not.
Right. Right. So when you're Googling things, or when you're trying to figure out, a new way or a different way to deal with something that you're struggling with, or to try to manage something with your child or your loved one, and you see some of these different techniques and these different strategies and these different interventions, put it to a test. Put it to a test first, probably through logic and through critical thinking and through Google Scholar, and try to figure out what does the research say about some of this, and what are other people saying about this, and does it make sense in my life? I certainly wouldn't say that. I know a lot of people who go around and live much of their life barefooted. From the South, and I have a lot of family members.
Some family members.
And it,
they have just as many.
They have just as many health problems as what we're seeing in the general population, anyways.
Right.
So I don't know that my experience would not suggest that, being connected to the ground in that way would affect, the prevalence of diabetes, for example.
Right.
Now, that said, if you're barefooted and you're walking around outside, what are you doing? You're walking around outside, which means that you're exercising. So is it the exercise, or is it the walking around barefoot?
Or the vitamin D from the sunshine.
Exactly. And so there's so many other factors involved. And again, you just have to think real critically about it. And before you jump on board and say, okay, well, this one's going to solve my problems.
Right. And having a healthy life is a long-term project of careful eating, careful exercise, careful sleeping, careful reduce your stress. I mean, it takes a long time. I was talking to a friend the other day who said she is now in her 70s, and she had a physical, and the doctor said, you are incredibly healthy for your age. And then she said, but I've been doing this stuff for 30 or 40 years. She said, I've been doing these things. She said, I didn't know whether it was having an effect or not. But she said, I've been living a healthy life for a long time, eating carefully, taking milk, taking vitamins, nothing too radical, but just living a healthy life.
Yeah.
And so she attributes her good health now to the way she took care of herself over a 30 or 40 year period.
Right.
And I think that's the ticket. That's the key.
Yeah, there are no quick fixes. There are no, there is nothing that you can just do once and it's going to fix the problem and prevent it from happening again.
Right.
You know, you these are lifestyle changes that you have to make,
Yeah.
regardless of what we're talking about.
And healthy skepticism is what we're advocating. And one other warning, just because it's on TV doesn't mean that it has been researched or shown to be effective. We have this, there's a funny thing that happened a generation ago, that if something was on TV, it was real.
Right.
You know, if it's on TV, it must be true. Well, we all know that that's not true.
Right.
I mean, just because something is on TV
or the internet.
Doesn't make it legitimate.
Right.
Okay. So just because some speaker comes on or some program, something comes on TV, doesn't mean that it's been vetted. It doesn't mean that it's been researched. So again, be skeptical even if you see it on TV. Maybe especially if you see it on TV.
And even if that person has doctor in front of their name, or MD or PhD or any of that kind of stuff after their name, it doesn't necessarily mean that what they're saying is absolutely true.
That's right. And I think a good example in our field today is this whole issue of brain mapping, that if you look at a very colorful map of the brain, that it's somehow telling you something about an individual.
Right.
And that we know it isn't. And there's been some literature that has come out in the last month or so about warning everybody, professionals and non-professionals, to be careful of these brain maps, because that's something that works for large groups of people. It's not a diagnostic tool for an individual.
Right.
Okay, especially when it comes to things like emotional disorders and learning problems and those sorts of things. So be cautious. Just because somebody can produce a colorful map or they can put it on TV and it looks good, that makes good TV. It might not be good science.
Right. Absolutely. So, all right. That was a heavy topic
we
for
had
a
planned
Tuesday
just
morning.
to introduce it, but but we'd like to talk about this additionally. So if you have questions or if you're concerned about a treatment or an intervention and you want, give us a call. Let us know what's going on. We'll be happy to research it with you or for you. So
absolutely,
let us know.
Yeah, and we'll certainly be talking about it more.
This is a topic that I think we should do some more work on.
All right, so that wraps us up for this wonderful Tuesday, November 1.
Tuesday, that's right.
So we will be back tomorrow morning, and with another show.
Tomorrow is Wednesday.
Yep, November 2. Nope. Letters from the. I'm gonna have to put the schedule like on the wall. So
you should put it up there. Like we have a whiteboard there. You could put it up there, and I would get it right. It's a little like daylight savings time.
Maybe I'll write it real big so that you can
I can see it. Because unlike reading, vision doesn't get better with age.
That's right.
You guys have a good day.
Yes, and we will see you in the morning. Bye-bye.